back in Chicago for one more video before trips to Montreal, Paris, and Los Angeles on the schedule. We're at the private game into the 1, 2, 3 blinds for $1,000. Alright, right off the bat, we look down at the jiggities, as Brad Owen would say. I'm in the big blind and I decide to 3-bet Mung from under the gun all the way up to $50. She doesn't waste any time before 4-bet jamming all in for $238. And I'm snap calling. I'm not going anywhere with pocket jacks. I know the vlog just started, but we're willing to get that money in. Let's go off to a run out in a $500 pot. She exposes her cards at the end of the hand. She has King 10 of spades, so let's put that up there with these fancy graphics so you can see the statistics. The flop comes 7-5-4 with 2 spades, so yeah, we have her beat at the moment. Let's see if we can hold. Turn comes a 6 of diamonds, followed by a 10. We're good in this hand, 100% chance of scooping this $500 pot. Let's freaking go.
Oh, the bang!
Mung.
We upgrade from pocket jacks all the way up to the bullets, American Airlines, pocket aces, and I'm in the hijack. Tommy on my right decides to raise it up to $45. As you can see, there was a button straddle on, and of course I'm not going to let that slide. I decide to 3-bet him to $115. Now Mung, the player who had the button straddle out there, decides to show her cards to the dealer before folding. That gets Tommy out of there as well, so even though I'm taking down that hand, and would have been a lot cooler if I would have gotten to a flop and won a larger pot. Alright, my turn to put on the $10 button straddle. I look down at 5 deuce of diamonds, and Mung puts in the call. That leads us off to a flop, which comes 9-3-3 with 2 diamonds. Mung checks it over to me. I check back with my 5 high diamond draw, and we get there on the turn. Bang! The 7 of diamonds gives me the flush. Mung now decides to bet out into me for $10, and I'm going to spring the trap right away and bet it all the way up to $30. Want to increase the size of the pot if she has a higher diamond in her hand, like ace-9 with the ace of diamonds, or maybe she has something like king-queen offsuit with a king of diamonds, something like that. I gotta charge her. She's not gonna go anywhere, and sure enough, she does. She puts in the call, bringing us off to a pretty safe river. It comes a deuce of clubs. Remember, I raised her on the turn. She now decides to dunk into me once again for $50. I'm not going to let that slide. I decide to raise it up to 125, a little bit less than 3x. My logic is if she has a 3, she's going to call here. And I don't want to go too large and scare her off, just a pocket pair or maybe a 9x type of hand. But when I raise it up to 125, it might have been a little bit too large as she mucks her cards. But we're undefeated early on in this session here at the private game. Alright, we can't battle with only premiums. This time I look down at pocket 3s from the low jack, and I start off the action by raising it up to $15. Mung, who appears to be playing every hand that I'm involved in, she decides to put in the call, and she's the only one to do so. So we're going heads up, out of position to a flop, which comes 10-5-3. Bang! We flop bottom set.
Yes! Holy shit!
Yes! Let's go! 100!
Mung, I checked it to you.
Mung's cheering. Why is she cheering, you might ask? Well, it's not because I have bottom set. She doesn't know my cards. It's actually because she has this exact board written up on the chalkboard. So yeah, she's going to make a few extra $100, courtesy of all the other players at the table that are playing this game. But let's get back to the actual hand. I have 10-5-3. I have bottom set on a monotone board. And usually when I'm out of position and it's monotone, I'm going to start with a check. Mung's feeling pretty happy with locking up a few extra $100 in that side bet. So she decides to bet out for $16, and I decide just to put in the call, not spring the trap just yet. I just call, leading us off to a turn which comes a safe deuce of spades. I check it over to her once again in flow, and she now decides to bet out for $20 into the $68 pot. And now I could go for the check raise, protect my hand against any of those diamond draws. I do have a set, but I decide just to put in the smooth call, which leads us off to a river, and it pairs the board, giving me a boat. I now beat any of her flushes, and look at that. Look how smooth I am. I check it over to her for a third time. This is definitely not indicative of how many players would play a set or a boat, but when I check it over to her, she bets out one more time for $40. That's most likely $40 she'll never get back. But I don't want to just play for $40. I decide to raise her up to $140. She snap folds, so it looks like I got the maximum in that hand. Still undefeated and working our chip stack up nicely here in the session.
10-5. Ooh.
All right, this next hand's a fun one. I look down at pocket aces from the cutoff. The low jack opens it up to $15, and I announce $45. It's not a string bet. I didn't just toss a few chips out there and add some more to the stack. I make it 45 bucks, and Eddie on the button puts in the call, and that brings in the big blind as well. The low jack puts in the call. We are going 4 ways to a flop. Not exactly the most ideal situation with the bullets. Maybe I should have went a little bit larger, and the board comes 6-5-3 rainbow. Obviously, any of these opponents here could have pocket 6s, 5s, or 3s. I think 4-7's a little ambitious, but ace-4 is definitely in their range as well. A little bit sketchy here with pocket aces, but when it checks to me, I'm going to put some more money in and let them tell me they have a better hand. I'm not going to play scared and just check it over to them, so I decided to bet out for $75. Eddie's on my left, and he's in the button, and he jams all in for $248. Now immediately this smells like a set or maybe a 2-pair type hand like 6-5. He could have some value that we have beat, for instance pocket 8s, pocket 9s. He doesn't have that much in his stack, so just putting it all in doesn't seem like a bad move. There's not too many cold bluffs here or semi-bluffs, so most likely he does in fact have a set or an overpair. I'm going to take my chances and put it in with pocket aces. If you guys remember that Horseshoe Hammond Indiana vlog, I got him in a $2,000 pot, so if I lose here, a little bit of chips back in his direction, which I'm happy to do. We're off to a run out. He ends up turning over pocket 6s for the turned boat, and he's going to take down that $680 pot. Pocket aces getting cracked.
No!
Oh, let's go.
My God.
Slow roll.
All right, I find myself in this hand on the button, and I look down at 9-7 of spades. I decided to raise it up to $15, and Eddie in the small blind puts in the call. He has some newfound chips to go to battle with. They're all mine. And we see a flop which comes pretty good. Ace-6-5 with 2 spades. And now Eddie donk leads into me for $35. I'm going to have all the strong hands here like pocket aces, pocket kings, pocket queens. I'm going to have a pair plus flush draw a load of the time. So I'm not exactly sure why he's leading into me here. Unless he has like a set. But then again, he probably should just check it over to me. Still, when he bets out for 35 bucks, I'm not going anywhere. I decide just to put in the smooth call, leading us off to a turn, which comes the king of clubs. Eddie does not slow down on this card. He continues for the tune of $45, and I don't slow down as well. I put in the call, leading us off to a terrible river. It comes the 6 of clubs, to which Eddie tosses in 1 black chip. I toss my cards into the muck, and before mucking, he flashes his cards, ace-queen offsuit. So pretty great hand for him and worthy of that $300 pot. All right, I'm on the button again. I look down at ace-queen of spades this time, $950 in my stack, and under the gun opens it up to $15. I'm not putting in the smooth call with ace-queen suited. I make it 45 bucks, and under the gun decides to put in the call, leading us heads up in position to a flop. The flop comes pretty good for us, jack 6-4 with 2 spades, and the opponent checks it in flow over to me. Even though I just have 2 overs and a spade draw, I need to go for a bet on this board, represent all the strong hands, so I decide to bet out for 30 bucks, and the opponent decides to put in the call, leading us off to a turn, which comes the 9 of clubs. He's going to have some sets on this board, sure. He's also going to have some top pair, but when he checks it over to me, I have the range advantage, I have all the over pairs, and I have all the pocket jacks. He really can't have any of those hands I just mentioned, so when he checks it over to me, I think it's important to put more pressure on his hands and get him to fold a pair which has me beat in the moment, and I bet out for $115. He doesn't look stoked about it, but he goes into the tank, so definitely hit that like button right now on this video if you guys want him to fold. Thank goodness you guys did that. It mattered a lot, and he folded his cards. We're taking it down there with ace high. Appreciate all the support. Next hand from the button, it appears like I'm only playing hands from the button this session. I raise it up to 20 bucks with pocket jacks. Yes, my second time looking down at the jiggities in this session. The player in the $3 blind puts in the call, leading us off to a flop, which comes ace-king-4 with 2 hearts, and he checks it over to me. Great board for my range, so I fire out for 20 bucks. He folds. Easy game. All right, this next hand is a fun one. We go to battle here with Mung. I look down at pocket 10s from the low jack. I raise it up to 15, and Mung 3-bets us to $45. Player on the button with $1,200 effective puts in the cold call for 45 bucks. The action's back over to me. If it was just me and Mung, I probably would have raised her up to 125 to 150 bucks, but a cold call from the button is pretty strange. A lot of players will do this with hands like pocket jacks, maybe king queen suited, hands like that, so I don't know if I want to get into a raising war here. Sure, I could just make it 200 bucks, they'd both fold and I win 90 bucks, but I could just raise it and Mung decides to rip it all in, And then I would have wished I just put in the call and flop a 10. So I decided to take the latter route and just put in the call. Maybe that's not the best play in the long run, but we flop ourselves an overpair when it comes 9-5 deuce with 2 hearts. Gonna check and flow over to Mung and the button, and she decides to check it over to him, and he checks behind. So not exactly sure what they have here, but it looks like a raise preflop would have got the job done. And the turn now comes the king of clubs. I decided to check it over to Mung once again. This is a card that's going to connect a lot better with her than myself. So when I check it over to her, she represents it to the tune of 55 bucks. The button gets out of the way. He kind of made this hand a little bit confusing to me. What I'm not confused about is this $55 bet. It's not going to get me to fold. I put in the call with 1 black chip. I get some change back, and we're off to a river, which really shouldn't change anything. It comes to 7 of clubs. Of course, I'm going to check it over to Mung once again, and now we're in a pickle when she bets out for $110, around the third the size of the pot. Now the problem is here, if she was bluffing, she probably would go for a larger size. This really small bet looks like value. She checked on the flop, she bet when the king came out into 2 opponents, and then bet again on the river. She's not scared, she could just check back with a hand like jacks or queens. So I think she has a king in her hand. I go into the tank, ultimately finding a fold, and because this is a friendly home game environment, Mung is going to show me her hand, face up on the table, ace queen of clubs for the stone cold bluff. She knew that king was great for her range and represented it. $110 on the river, Mung, a third the size. That's nasty. What a value bet. Alright, we look down at pocket ochos from the small blind. Hijack opens it up to $15 and the cutoff puts in the call. Out of the small blind, you really should just be raising or folding. Is pocket eights worth a raise? I think so, and I decided to make it $70. The initial raiser gets out of the way. His opening range was a little bit light, but the cutoff's calling range is not light. He decides to put in the call. At this point, I'm putting him on a random assortment of suited connectors, maybe even pocket pairs that want to call here. Still, $70 is not a shabby bet, so he's got to have somewhat of a decent hand. We see a flop which comes queen 9-4 rainbow. The only downside is we are out of position. There's 2 overcards, but I'm not playing scared poker in 2023. I bet out for $45. The opponent pretty quickly waves the white flag, so we get that one through. Phew, I thought if I was going to get called there, it was going to be a tough situation, but we're not faced with that one. We win this pot, moving right along swimmingly to the next hand with king-queen offsuit from the cutoff, and we see an open from middle position all the way up to 15 bucks. Of course, I'm going to 3-bet him to 45 bones, and he decides to put in the call. This is the same player from the last hand, so yeah, we are battling this player in position this time, and it comes 9-3 deuce with 2 clubs. When he checks to me, I go for a c-bet of $30, representing all of the pocket pairs in my range. I'm going to have 10s plus. I'm going to have pocket 9s, pocket 8s, pocket 7s. I bet out for 30 bucks, and he puts in the call, bringing a board pairing 9 of spades on the turn. Not exactly the best card. He could have a 9x in his range, and he checks it over to me, and I'm not going to fall into that trap. I decide to check behind, bringing in a third 9, the 9 of diamonds on the river, and he checks it over to me once again. Now, it's not a snap check behind because he could have some king X in his range. He could have some ace highs, and I want to get them to fold. For instance, if I just check back here, I'm losing to all of his ace X. Ace X of clubs, to be specific. I could just probably bet here and get him to fold. So that's what I decided to do. I want to win this hand outright. I want to get some of his pocket pairs to fold as well. It might be a little bit ambitious, but don't tell me that. I bet out for $115. He mucks his hand, so we probably had him beat. And we take down another pot. $850 in my stack. I look down at pocket kings, and I decide to raise it up to $65 over a $15 button straddle. Seems like a good price to go to battle with pocket kings with. And the small blind and the button both oblige. They put in the call. We are going 3 ways to the flop with pocket kings, which comes 10-9-7. It's not exactly the best board with pocket kings. Sure, I have the overpair, but they're going to have pocket 10s, pocket 9s, pocket 7s, 8-6, 8-jack. They got a lot of stuff here that they can crack my kings with. So when the small blind checks it over to me, because of this range advantage they're going to have, and also because I'm out of position to the button, I decide to start with a check. The button does not decide to check behind. Instead, he bets out for 80 bucks. A little bit worrisome. He could have any of those hands I just mentioned. But at the same time, I have pocket kings. So when I check here, I'm checking to call, not checking to fold. At the same time, I'm not leading out into the field here because I don't want to get raised and then be in a tough spot. So when he bets out for 80 bucks, I'm not going anywhere like I just said. I decide to put in the call, leading us off to the turn card. The turn now comes the 3 of diamonds, which is a pretty safe card. Any of his semi-bluffs do not get there, but at the same time, I'm not going to donk into him now when he decides to bet the flop. So I check it over to the button, and surprisingly though, he decides to check behind with 1 chip. Interesting. Okay, not sure what to make of that. River now comes the queen of diamonds, bringing in the backdoor flush draw, and now completing a draw like king jack, although I double block that having 2 kings in my hand. Do I go for a small bet here on the river, trying to get value from a hand like 2 pair? I don't know, that's a little ambitious. Maybe if I check to him, he might go for another bet or go for a bluff. So that's what I decided to do. I check it over to him, and he snap checks behind, which is kind of a double-edged sword because that definitely means we have the best hand. Sure enough, I turn over the kings. He looks surprised, like, how do I have that hand in this spot? And he mucks his cards, but when he mucks his cards, we get $360, so that's going to put a smile on my face. With that last hand in the book, we rack up our chips and head over to the cage. All right, you guys, that wraps up that session. Got in for 1,000, out for 883, a net loss of 117. It would have been a lot better if we would have called that bluff from Mung. Had a feeling she was bluffing. I just couldn't get myself to do it. Oh well, hope you guys enjoyed the video. If you guys want to get better at poker, there's a few links down below. I'm sponsored by GTO Wizard. I have my own training course, a bunch of discount codes for other courses that you guys might already want to purchase. That's down below in the poker resource section. I hope you guys get better this year, and a lot of fun videos upcoming. I'm going to Montreal, I'm going to Paris with Ethan, and then I'm going to Texas. So you guys are going to want to stay tuned. Make sure you drop a subscribe on this video. Leave a comment down below, and I'll catch you in the next one. Peace! Thanks for watching to the end of my video. Click my head below to subscribe and stay in the loop. See you next time.